Good afternoon. Now that I've finished all that I'm going to do on the raised beds for now, it is time to come back and complete this retaining wall on the other side. So that's what I'm starting to do this afternoon. The first thing I need to do is to work out levels, because obviously everything's on an incline and I've got to figure out where I want the top board to finish and then work down from there and figure out all the bits in between. So that's what I'm about to launch into. So I need to start at this end. I'm probably going to the board that's going to go from here. I will actually start higher up here and take that up, because the marks that you can actually see on there are the concrete level, and I definitely want the boards higher than the concrete level so that the garden goes up from the concrete and not down from the concrete. So I'm about to launch into that, and how much I'll video and how much I don't, I haven't really decided. So we'll catch up a bit further down the day. After the short bit of time lapse showing me removing some dirt and then running the string line for where the top of the top board was going to go, I worked out that the wall was going to be exactly 3 boards high, and I could do it all without the need to change the angle of incline of the wall. This was great news, as it made the job much simpler than it may have been. I decided to just leave the camera rolling with a plan to edit the video afterwards. Today, as there's no one else around or things flapping in the breeze, I'm using the Tillerson tracker to control the GoPro direction. One of the main reasons I bought the AEG compound miter saw is for jobs like this. There are multiple different angles that require the boards to be cut on 2 non-perpendicular angles on the same cut. This type of saw, i.e. non-table saws, come in 3 different options, with variations even within each of those. The first, or most basic in function if you like, is a drop saw that just cuts straight down. The variation of this being that it may go back and forth. These are most often what you see used in a merchant's timber yard for when customers want a specific shorter length of timber. The next option is the miter saw, which will cut across on a miter of variable angle either to the left or the right. Again, some go back and forth as well. Then the third is what I have here, which is called a compound miter saw, because not only will it do a miter in the horizontal plane, but also in the vertical plane. This type of saw will do more of an angle in the vertical plane on one way than it will on the other. They do the lesser angle on the motor side, for obvious reason that the motor is in the way. No doubt you noticed that the timber hasn't become any lighter over the last week. Bringing them out from the garage wasn't helped by the fact that I couldn't open the door completely because the blue ute was fouling the door. I could only raise the door about 600mm. The ute couldn't be moved as the guest was not on site. And the reason why there's quite a bit of faffing around getting the angles is because not only is it They're an angle on the vertical plane because the plank is going uphill, but there's also an angle in the horizontal plane because I've got to get it fixed in here, so I want that corner to go in as far as possible. So I think I've more or less got that sorted. I could cut a little bit more back a bit further on this one, but I didn't want to have the plank short, so that's what I've done this time around. They might get better as we come further up. Let's see how we go. Please excuse the background noise in that last bit. There was a roller compacting the shingle for the tennis court going in next door. Background noise is part of the reason this bit has voiceover rather than audio from the video recorded. When I put the first board in, it jammed in place, and it took me a while to work out the reason. I didn't have enough clearance between the far post and the dirt, or more specifically the tree root that was buried in the dirt. This meant I needed to bring out the draining spade, a long thin bladed one that's very sharp, and also the reciprocating saw to deal with the roots. Once I cleared the dirt and roots, things progressed. I also needed to dig out more dirt by each post so that I could get the driver down to put the long screws in. Some refer to these drivers as rattle guns for obvious reasons. Once I had the first board in, the other two were straightforward, though I did have to keep checking that I was cutting the plank on the correct angles at the correct end. Trust me, it's very easy to get it wrong with tongue and groove timber, as there is only one right way for it to go in. I didn't manage to mess this up this time round, so that was good. I put the top board in place and then realised that I had forgotten to rip the tongue off the top of it so that it had a flat top. The circular saw with the guide was the easiest way to sort this, once I'd taken the board out again. I adjusted the depth of the cut so that it just removed the tongue and was in no danger of cutting what the board was sitting on, and then used the guide to the bottom, if you like, the groove side of the board to make sure that I got a reasonably accurate cut taking the tongue off, and it worked pretty well. I haven't included the video of the completion of the shorter part of the retaining wall, as not only was there a lot of digging of dirt and hacking of largest tree roots to enable the boards to go in, but there was also quite a lot of to and fro between the wall and the thaw, because I used the offcuts both from the first part of the wall and also from the raised beds around the other side. It was a good place to use them, as the wall is only 2 boards high and under no real stress. I joined the 2 short pieces on the central post and cut the boards on 45 so that they overlapped on the post. You may remember that I'm going to run an electrical cable along the fence from the house to the shed. The conduit will run on top of the retaining wall, and then the lower rail of the fence will be directly above that. That will give the conduit good both physical protection and also protection from the sun. You probably observed that the ground falls away quite steeply on the other side of the wall. In order to make it easier to tend the ground on the other side, I plan to put some retaining planks down there. They'll just have 50 by 50 pegs to hold them in place, as it will only be 1 board high. At least that's the plan at this stage. If the walls end up needing to be higher than 1 board, I'll put a couple of posts in to make sure that everything stays where it's put. There's some pressure now to crack on and complete this job, as spring has definitely sprung and there are things that we want to plant in the garden, and ideally some of them should have already been planted. Here we are at the end of another day, and this is what I got done today. So I have finished the retaining wall, this part anyway, so that's all done. So now I can start thinking about the fence that is going to go from right down the end there all the way along here. That's actually quite a nice stage to be at. As I said earlier, I am going to put some boards on the other side here to have a little path, and I will most likely do that first, because it's going to be easy to get those boards over there before there's a fence in the way, but we shall see. That's it for today.